So you have to really think about, like, some facilities don't have props and things like that, certain things you can't do. So the level of the actual students present, okay? So this is what I was talking about a little bit earlier. You have this level 2-3 class, but the level of the students in the 2-3 class is like a level 1-2, right? So you really have to teach to, not only do you need to teach to the level, but you need to also teach to who's present. You don't want to get stuck on 1 or 2 people in the room that might not be at that level, but you want to really teach to the general presence of the room, okay? Season, time of the day, year, injuries, number of postures, limit. Okay, this is really important in our, what we're teaching you in the method of, the way that we sequence is that we limit the number of postures on one leg or one side to a maximum of 4 at a high level class. 3 average, okay? So it's, you know what I mean? We don't really do more than that. But again, it's one of those things where you have to sort of like look to your students, like who are your students, and like what are they capable or not capable of at that point. But when you do too many poses on one leg, especially if you're holding them there for like 10, 12 mini breaths, right? I was just thinking because we were just, Vinny, Marina was here and just taught classes and the 3 of us were there. And I was like, we were holding the standing pose for a really long time. And I was like, and then coming to Virabhadasana 2 after we'd already been there for like a long time. And it was great. But you have to consider how long you're holding a position, okay, in terms of the number of poses you're going to do on that leg. Because you over fatigue the body at a certain point, and then you can actually risk injury. Okay, so you just need to be mindful of that. Just again, it depends on who you. I think he just thought because he was teaching to a bunch of teachers, he's like, you can handle it. Right? It was intense.
Yeah, that was fun.
He taught a class just to the teachers, and like, I was a little beat up. Okay, so number of postures you limit on one side. Okay, 3 to 4 poses. Number of variations limit. And what do we mean by that?
Modifications.
Well, we used to distinguish variation from modification as this. Modification being an easier version of the pose, and a variation just being a variation. Fancy way. Or like, so I'll give you an example. Uttita Parshva Konasana. What is that pose? Extended side angle pose. Uttita Parshva Konasana. Okay. What's a simple version, a modification of that pose? Form on the thigh, right? Okay. What's a level up from that? Okay, send the arms. One hand down, maybe to the inside of the foot.
Or 9.
Not yet. What's a level up from the hand to the inside of the foot? Hand to the outside of the foot, and then the arm over the head. What's a level up from that? Now maybe binding the arm. So you see each of these poses have different gradations of levels to them. Right? Does everybody see that? Like each pose has a different gradation of level, different variations that you can do. Different variations you can do.
Those would be modifications.
No, just think of it as the same thing. Just think of it as the same thing. Don't try to distinguish variation and modification. Just think of it as the same thing. Okay? So it's just a variation of the pose. Whether it's easier or harder doesn't matter. It's just a variation. Okay, so limit the amount of variation. The role of rest is really, really important. Please give your students a break every now and again. Breath, heating versus cooling poses. Don't worry about that right now. I'll talk about it later. Transition between postures, groups of postures. Yeah, transitions. Okay. I'm going to tell you, and you can write this on this page if you want under this. We have some very general sequencing rules. One of them is limit the number of poses on one leg. Okay, so you can write that down. Another sequencing rule is, limit the number of poses on one leg. Okay, that's one sequencing rule.
Okay, not more than 3 or 4.
Not more than 3 to 4 poses on one leg. Okay. A second sequencing rule is linking or connecting like poses with like poses. Connecting or linking like poses with like poses. So what do I mean by that?
Externally rotated with externally rotated.
Brilliant, that's it. You guys are already fabulous. Okay, good. So you're not gonna do, for example, so what's a classic, when you think of like your classes you do, what's a classic like linking of poses? You're smiling, Sheree, do you know?
Well, the classic is veer 1 to veer 2, which
Yes.
is external, which is neutral to externally rotated. But you said that it's okay in more advanced classes.
Yes, it's okay in a more advanced class as long as the students know what they're doing and you really teach them that transition. It's much harder for students to do the transitions correctly from a neutral, from a hard asymmetrical neutral pose to an external pose. It's very hard for a lot of students to make that transition safely. And so this is why we're really like specific in like lower level classes to link like poses with like poses. It's because of the transitions, everybody, that people have to make. Because usually people get injured in the transition coming in and coming out of the pose, not in the pose itself. Most people get injured in the transitions, in and out. And so when you are teaching people to go into poses, you want to really be aware of what the risk factor is entering into that pose so that you can highlight that in your instruction. So for example, when you're going from like triangle pose into Ardha Chandrasana, Jean Marie probably talks a lot about that, right? What's one of the risks of going from triangle into Ardha Chandrasana?
The knee.
The knee, right? That front of the front leg, the standing leg, right? So what tends to happen, Lorena?
It tends to go out.
Right. Yeah, so you have to bring people's attention to that, in other words. Like you've got to bring people's attention to that happening. Does everybody know what she's talking about?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah? Are you sure?
Yep.
Okay. All right, good. All right, so limit the number of poses, like poses, linked with like poses. Externally rotated standing poses before neutral. Okay. I'm not talking about Tadasana and Uttanasana and Utkatasana. I'm talking about the harder asymmetrical neutral poses. Like Warrior 1, Parshvottanasana, Twisted Triangle Pose, Utthita Hasta Panagustasana, Virabhadrasana 3, okay? So, yeah, externally rotated standing poses before neutrally rotated standing poses. Now some of you are going to say, oh, but Surya Namaskar B is in the beginning of class, and Virabhadrasana 1 is in Surya Namaskar B. And that's very true, okay? The reason why it's kind of like an exception to the rule is because you're moving like through it, you know, you're not holding it. If you were to teach Virabhadrasana 1 as its own separate pose, you would want to do some other poses prior to doing that. However, on that same subject, I usually tend to teach like Surya Namaskar A, and then I'll do some standing poses, like some external standing, and then I'll do Surya Namaskar B. I tend to teach like that a lot, just because I give people's arms a break. So doing Surya A and Surya B, it's like your arms are like done, right? And so that's usually how I tend to teach. I'll do Surya Namaskar A, then I'll do some externally rotated standing poses, then I'll do Surya Namaskar B, and then I'll do the harder neutral standing poses.
So why externals go first?
Okay, good question. Why are externally rotated poses put before neutrals? Because in general, sort of for the general public, they tend to be easier for people to do. Okay? For most people. It's not everybody. It's like, but think about it. Virabhadrasana 2 and Virabhadrasana 1, for example. What's easier? Virabhadrasana 2 for lots of different reasons. What are some reasons why Virabhadrasana 1 might be harder than Virabhadrasana 2?
Trying to square out the hips might be a little
Well, also like just, you know, put your legs out in front of you just for a second. Stretch your legs out. Okay? Just let them relax. Let your legs relax. Just come out. Okay. What direction do your legs, if you just let your legs relax, what direction do your legs go? Out.
Blow out.
Yeah.
Externally rotated.
Yes. It's a more natural position of the leg in the hip for most people. It's a more natural position in the hip for most people is outer rotation, external rotation, than inner neutral rotation. How often do you see people like standing like this?
All the time.
Walking like this, right? How often do you see people standing like this and walking like this? Never. Hardly ever, okay? It's just a much more natural position for people to have. And that doesn't, it's not to say that it's an easy thing to do. It's just that it's a much more natural position of the leg and hip, okay? We tend to be stronger in external rotation and weaker in internal rotation because the internal rotators, the muscles that internally rotate the leg and the hip, tend to be weaker on most people than the external rotators, right? We already determined that gluteus maximus was one of the external rotators, and that is a huge muscle, and it's a very strong muscle. And that's going to overpower the gluteus minimus and medius. Minimus and medius means mini. Okay? And the minimus and the medius gluteus are here, and they are internal rotators. They're weaker, right? So it's just harder for people for different reasons, for many different reasons. Aside from the fact also that you have the arms here versus here, it's harder to have the arms here than to have the arms here. It's just a fact. Okay? It's just harder. Okay? So how we determine whether a pose, what level a pose is really based on what's required of the body to do that pose. Like all the different things that are required of the body to do that pose is what makes a pose a beginning level pose or an advanced level. Okay, so how much is required of your body to do Virabhadrasana? Lots of things. Much more than Virabhadrasana too. Okay, all right, so, and then last is easier before harder. Okay, this is another sequencing rule. Okay, so that's a big one. Okay, you want to do easier things before harder things. That's pretty obvious, but it doesn't seem that obvious all the time, or a lot of people don't teach that way most of the time. Okay, so what does that mean, easier before harder?
Extend.
Easier before harder? What are you talking about? Easier before harder. So, say that again?
Handstand before Virabhadrasana 1.
Headstand before Virabhadrasana 1, right, exactly. Although, if you took an Iyengar class, a lot of times in Iyengar they start with inversions. They start with handstand, headstand, things like that. So it's not
easy.
They're warming up.
that's their warm up because they don't. I mean, very rarely will they do sun citations like in Iyengar. Like sometimes in the winter time, some teachers might do more sun citation work, but so they usually do their sort of like warm up in the beginning of classes inversions.
But they're also spending a lot of time to explain and to do it safely, even,
And there's a lot of props that are used too with Iyengar that's very, very different than other classes. But